Welcome to another edition of Friday Folk and Fairy Tales, an adult story time. My name is Jean, and I'll be sharing two stories with you today. Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. That's our motto for this series. That's Neil Gaiman paraphrasing G.K. Chesterton. And we want to share fairy tales with you this summer while we all endure the pandemic to help us realize that we can overcome this difficult time and make it through. Please keep in mind that these spoken fairy tales were selected with an adult audience in mind, so please use discretion when sharing with any younger viewers. Today I wanted to focus on mythological birds. I'm sharing two stories with you. One focuses on a rook, which you can see on the left of your screen, and the other is the Firebird, which in the story is referred to as the bird of light. First, I'll be reading the tale of Ivan Tsarevich, the bird of light, and the gray wolf. There was once in a certain kingdom, a certain state, where there lived Tsar Vislav Adranovich, who had 3 sons. The first was called Dmitri Tsarevich, the second Vasily Tsarevich, and the third Ivan Tsarevich. This Tsar had a garden so rich that in no other kingdom was there any better, and in that garden many rare trees grew with fruits and without fruits. And the Tsar had an apple tree which he especially loved, and on that apple tree all the apples that grew were of gold. But it happened that the bird of light began to fly to visit Tsar Vislav. The feathers of the bird were all gold, but the eyes were like crystal of the east. It flew into the garden every night and sat on the apple tree beloved of Tsar Vislav, and used to pluck down the golden apples and fly away. Tsar Vislav Adranovich was deeply afflicted, and he called to him his 3 sons and said to them, "My beloved children, which of you will go into my garden and catch the bird of light? He who captures it alive, I will in my lifetime give him the half of my kingdom, and at my death he shall have it all." Then his children, the Tsarevichi, said in a single voice, "Gracious Lord our Father, your Imperial Majesty, we will, with the greatest pleasure, try to catch the bird of light alive." On the first night, Dmitri Tsarevich went into the garden and sat under the apple tree from which the bird of light used to steal the apples. But he went to sleep, and he never heard when the bird of light flew up again and again plucked off many apples. In the morning, Tsar Vislav Adranovich called his son Dmitri to him, and he asked him, "Well, my beloved son, did you see the bird of light, or did you not?" And he answered, "Father, gracious Lord, this night it did not come." So the next night, Vasily Tsarevich went to keep watch in the garden. He sat under the same apple tree and sat there 1 hour and went to sleep so soundly that he never heard the coming of the bird of light, which flew onto the tree, perched on it, and plucked many apples. In the morning, the Tsar called his second son and questioned him, and he answered, "Gracious Lord, my father, this night the bird of light did not come." And on the third night, Ivan Tsarevich went into the garden to watch, and sat under the same apple tree, and he waited 1 hour, a second hour, and a third hour. And then the whole garden lit up as though it shone with many fires, and the bird of light flew in and sat on the apple tree and began to pluck the apples. Ivan Tsarevich stole under it so warily and seized it by its tail, only he could not keep hold of it, and had only 1 feather out of its tail. In the morning, when Tsar Vislav awoke from his sleep, Ivan Tsarevich went to him and gave him the feather of the bird of light. Sarvislav was very glad that the youngest son had succeeded, although he had only a single feather. And this feather was so marvelous and bright that you had only to take it into some dark attic and it shone as bright as the red sun. Sarvislav put the feather into his cabinet as an article which he must keep forever. And from that time forward, the bird of light never flew into the garden. Sarvislav once again called his children unto him and said, My beloved sons, do ye journey forth. I will give you my blessing. You must seek for the bird of light and bring it to me alive. And what I promised you before, he who captures the bird of light shall have. Dmitri and Vasily were envious of their younger brother Ivan, that he had succeeded in pulling the feather out of the bird of light's tail. But Ivan Tsarevich asked leave of his father and his blessing. Sarvislav tried to keep Ivan back, but he could not, and he let him go at his unrelaxing prayer. Ivan Tsarevich received his father's blessing, took his horse, and went on his journey, journeying forth, not knowing whither he was going. And as he went on the road and way, it may be near, it may be far, it may be high, it may be low. The tale is soon told, but the deed is not soon done. At least he reached an open field and green meadows. And in the open field there stood a stone column, and on that column these words were written, Whosoever goes on straight from this column, he shall have hunger and cold. Whoever goes to the right, he shall have health and life, but his horse shall be slain. And whoever goes to the left, he shall himself be slain, but his horse shall have life and be healthy. Ivan Tsarevich read this inscription, and he went to the right, bethinking himself, if his horse were to be slain anyhow, he would remain alive. So he went on one day, and a second, and a third, and suddenly a fierce grey wolf met him and said, All hail to thee, warrior, doughty of might, Ivan Tsarevich. Hast thou read how it is written on the column, that thy horse shall be slain? So why hast thou ridden this way? And the wolf, speaking these words, cleft the horse of the young Ivan Tsarevich in two, and went far aside. Ivan Tsarevich wept bitterly for his horse, and he went on foot. And he went one whole day, and grew very, very tired. And when he wanted to sit down and to rest, suddenly the grey wolf came up to him and said, I have pity for you, Ivan Tsarevich, that you are tiring yourself going on foot. Come, sit on me, on the grey wolf, and say whither I shall take you and wherefore. Ivan Tsarevich told the grey wolf where he wanted to go, and the grey wolf flew off with him swifter than any horse. And in a short time, as it might be in a single night, he conducted Ivan Tsarevich to a stone wall, stopped, and said, Now, Ivan Tsarevich, jump off me, off the grey wolf, and go through this stone wall. There is a garden behind the wall, and in that garden the bird of light is sitting in a golden cage. You must take the bird of light, but you must not touch the golden cage, or they will capture you at once. Ivan Tsarevich slipped through the stone wall into the garden, saw the bird of light in the golden cage, and was very pleased. He took the bird out of the cage and was going back, and then he thought and said to himself, Why should I take the bird of light without the cage? Where shall I put it? So he turned back, and as soon as ever he had taken the golden cage, there was a clamor and a clangor in the garden as though there were ropes attached to the cage. All the watchmen woke up, ran up into the garden, seized Ivan Tsarevich with the bird of light, and took him to their Tsar, who was called Domat. Tsar Domat was very angry with Ivan Tsarevich, and shrieked in a wrathful tone, "Are you not ashamed of yourself, young man, to come stealing? Who are you? Of what land? Who was your father? How do they call you on earth?" Ivan Tsarevich answered him, "I am the son of Tsar Adranovich, and they call me Ivan Tsarevich. Your bird of light flew into the garden every night and stole the golden apples from the apple tree my father loved. And for that reason my father sent me to seek the bird of light and to take it to him." "Oh, thou brave youth, Ivan Tsarevich!" Tsar Dolmat cried. "I would certainly have given you the bird, but what did you do? If you had come to me, I should have given you the bird of light as an honor. But now, would it be well were I to send you into all kingdoms to proclaim how you came into my realm and dealt dishonorably? Now listen, Ivan Tsarevich. If you will do me this service, if you will go across thrice 9 kingdoms into the thrice 10th realm, and will there obtain me from Tsar Afan the golden-maned horse, I will forgive your sin, and I will give you the bird of light, and will do you great honor." And Ivan Tsarevich became very sorrowful, and left Tsar Dolmat, found the Grey Wolf, and told him of everything. "Hail to thee, warrior doughty of might," the Grey Wolf said to him. "Why did you not listen to my words? Why did you take the golden cage?" "I am guilty," Ivan Tsarevich said to the wolf. "Well, so be it," said the wolf. "Sit on me, on the Grey Wolf. I will take you wherever you wish." Ivan Tsarevich sat on the Grey Wolf's back, and the wolf chased as fast as a dart, and ran maybe far, maybe near, and at last he reached the kingdom of Tsar Afron at night time. And when he had come to the white stone stables of the Tsar, the Grey Wolf said to Ivan Tsarevich, "Get down, Ivan, go into the white stone stables, and take the golden-maned horse. Only there hangs a golden bridle on the wall, which you are not to touch, or it will go ill with you." Ivan Tsarevich went back into the white stone stables, took the horse, and went back. But he saw the golden bridle on the wall, and when his glance fell on it, he took it from the hook. And as soon as he touched it, there was a clangor and a clamor throughout all the stables, as though there were ropes attached to the bridle. All the watchmen woke up, ran into the stable, seized Ivan Tsarevich with the golden-maned steed, and took him to their Tsar Afron. Tsar Afron was very angry with Ivan Tsarevich, and asked him who he was, who was his father, and what was his name. When Ivan had told him also of his errand, he said, "I would have certainly given you the golden-maned horse if you had asked me for it, but since you have dealt thus dishonorably with me, you must do me this service, and then I will give you the golden-maned horse with the bridle. You must ride across thrice 9 lands into the thrice 10th kingdom, and gain me Princess Elena the Fair, whom I have for long loved with all my heart and soul, but cannot gain. In return for this I will forgive you, and give you what you sought as an honor. But if you do not do me this service, I will proclaim throughout all the realms of the world that you are a dishonorable thief." Ivan Tsarevich went out of the place and began to weep bitterly. Then he came to the Grey Wolf and related how it had gone with him. "Hail to thee, brave warrior, doughty of might," the Grey Wolf said. "Why did you not listen to my words and take the golden bridle?" "I have been guilty before you," said Ivan Tsarevich. "Well, so be it," the Grey Wolf went on. "Sit on my back, on the Grey Wolf. I will take you wherever you require." So Ivan Tsarevich sat on the Grey Wolf's back, and the Grey Wolf scoured as fast as a dart. And at last he arrived at the kingdom of Princess Elena the Fair, to the golden palisade which surrounded the wonderful garden. And the wolf said to the Tsarevich, "Ivan Tsarevich, slip off my back, off the grey wolf, and go behind on that road, and wait for me in the open field under the green oak." Ivan Tsarevich went as he was bidden, and the grey wolf sat near the golden palisade, waiting until Princess Elena the Fair should come into the garden to walk. In the evening, when the little sun was setting fast to the west, Princess Elena the Fair went into the garden to take a walk with all of her maids of honor, and servants and attendants, and all the Boyani around. When she came to the place where the grey wolf sat behind the railing, suddenly the grey wolf leapt across the grating to the garden, seized Princess Elena the Fair, leapt back, and ran away with all his might and strength. He then went into the open field under the green oak where Ivan Tsarevich was waiting, and said, "Ivan Tsarevich, come sit on my back, on the grey wolf swiftly." Ivan Tsarevich sat on him, and the grey wolf scoured off with them both fast to the kingdom of Tsar Afron. All the maids of honor and servants and attendants and Boyarni ran swiftly into the palace and began to set a hunt on foot. But, however, many of the hunters that hunted, they could not hunt down the grey wolf, and so they all turned back home again, frustrated. Ivan Tsarevich, seated on the grey wolf's back with Elena the Fair, fell in love with her, and she with him. And when the grey wolf arrived at the garden of Tsar Afron, the Tsarevich grew very sad, and began to weep tears. The grey wolf asked him, "Why are you weeping, Tsarevich?" And Ivan Tsarevich answered him, "Oh, my friend, the grey wolf, how shall it be to me, the doughty youth, not to weep, not to be afflicted? I love Princess Elena the Fair with all my heart, and now I must give her up to Tsar Afron in exchange for the golden-maned horse. And if I do not give her up, then Tsar Afron will dishonor me throughout all the kingdoms." "I have served you well, Ivan Tsarevich," the grey wolf replied, "and I will serve you yet this service. Listen, Ivan Tsarevich. I will turn myself into the fair Princess Elena, and you will take me to Tsar Afron and be given the golden-maned horse. He will then take me as his queen, and when you sit on the golden-maned horse and you ride far away, then I will ask Tsar Afron to leave to walk in the open field. And when he lets me go with the maids of honor and servants and serving maids and attendants and the Boyarni, then think of me, and I shall be with you once again." His speech finished, the grey wolf struck the grey earth, and he turned himself into Princess Elena. Ivan Tsarevich took the grey wolf and went into the palace of Tsar Afron together, and with the supposed Elena the Fair. Then the Tsar was very joyous in his heart that he had received such a treasure, which he had been desiring for long, and he gave the golden-maned horse to Ivan Tsarevich. Ivan Tsarevich sat on the horse, and he went behind the town, and he placed Elena the Fair on it. And they went away, taking their road to the kingdom of Tsar Dolmat. The grey wolf stayed one day with Tsar Afron, and a second day, and a third, in the stead of fair Princess Elena. And then he asked leave of Tsar Afron to go and walk in the open field, that he might drive out the ravening sorrow from his heart. Then Tsar Afron said to him, "Oh, my fair Queen Elena, I will do anything for you." And he promptly bade the maids of honor, the servants, the attendants, and the Boyarni to go with him and the fair princess into the open field to walk. Ivan Tsarevich went on his way and rode with Elena the Fair, and they had almost forgotten the grey wolf when he suddenly recollected, "Oh, where is my grey wolf?" Then, from some source unknown, he stood in front of Ivan Tsarevich and said, "Sit on me, Ivan Tsarevich, on the grey wolf, and the fair princess can go on the golden-maned steed. Ivan Tsarevich sat on the grey wolf, and so they went on to the realm of Tsar Dolmat, maybe far or near, and when they reached the kingdom, then they stopped 3 versts out of the town, and Ivan began to beseech the grey wolf. Listen to me, my beloved friend, the grey wolf. You have served me so many services. Serve me a last. Can you not turn yourself into the golden-maned horse? Then the grey wolf struck the grey earth and became the golden-maned horse. And Ivan Tsarevich left the fair Elena in the green meadow, sat on the grey wolf, and went into the palace to Tsar Dolmat. And as soon as every Tsar Dolmat saw Ivan Tsarevich, that he was riding the golden-maned horse, he came out of his palace, met the Tsarevich in the open courtyard, kissed him on his smooth cheeks, took him by his right hand, and led him into the white-stoned palace. Tsar Dolmat, for such a joy, bade a feast be prepared, and then sat at the oaken tables by the checkered tablecloths, and they ate, drank, and made merry for 2 days. On the 3rd day, Tsar Dolmat delivered to Ivan the bird of light with the golden cage. The Tsarevich took the golden bird, went outside the town, sat on the golden-maned horse together with the Princess Elena, and went back to his own country. Tsar Dolmat thought the next day he would take his golden-maned horse into the open fields, and as soon as ever he had angered the horse, it reared and was turned into a great grey wolf who raced off. When it came up with Ivan Tsarevich, it said, "Sit on me, on the grey wolf, and Princess Elena the Fair, she can ride on the golden-maned horse." Ivan Tsarevich sat on the grey wolf, and they went a 3rd journey. Soon the grey wolf took Ivan Tsarevich to the place where he had cleft his horse in 2, and said, "Now, Ivan Tsarevich, I have served you well, faithfully and truly. On this spot I cleft your horse in 2, and up to this spot I have brought you again. Slip off me, off the grey wolf. Now you have your golden-maned horse. I can serve you no more." The grey wolf spoke these words and went into the forest, and Ivan Tsarevich wept bitterly for the grey wolf, and went on his road with the fair Elena on the golden-maned horse. And before he reached his own kingdom, and when he was only 20 versts off, he stopped, got off his horse, and together with the fair Elena went under a tree. He tied the golden-maned horse to that same tree, and he took the cage with the bird of light with him, and lying on the grass, engaged in loving conversations, they went to sleep. Now, it happened at this time that the brothers of Ivan Tsarevich, Dmitri and Vasily, were riding out in different states and could not find the bird of light. They were just returning to their kingdom with empty hands when they were provoked. And they lit upon their sleeping brother with the fair Princess Elena. When they saw the golden-maned horse and the bird of light in the golden cage on the grass, they were delighted, and thought that they would slay their brother Ivan Tsarevich. Dmitri took his sword out of his sheath and cleft Ivan Tsarevich, and then he roused the fair Princess Elena and began to ask her, "Fair maiden, from what kingdom art thou? Who was thy father? How did they call thee on earth?" And the fair Princess Elena, seeing Ivan Tsarevich dead, was sore afraid, and with bitter tears spake, "I am Princess Elena the Fair, and Ivan Tsarevich found me, whom ye have slain, whom ye have given over to an evil death. If ye were good champions, ye would have gone with him into an open field and have slain him in fair fight. But ye have slain him in his sleep, and how shall ye receive praise? Is not a man asleep as one dead?" Then Dmitri Tsarevich put his sword to the breast of fair Princess Elena. Listen, Elena the Fair, you are now in our hands. We will take you to our father, Tsar Vaslav Adranovich, and you are to tell him that we found you and the bird of light and the golden-maned steed. If you do not say this, we will slay you at once. Princess Elena the Fair was frightened to death, and swore by all the holy relics that she would do as she was bidden. Then Dmitri Tsarevich and Vasily Tsarevich began to cast lots who should have the fair Princess Elena and who should have the golden-maned horse. And the lot fell that the fair Princess Elena should belong to Vasily, and the horse to Dmitri. Ivan Tsarevich lay down dead on the spot for 30 days. And in that time the grey wolf ran up to him, and he recognized Ivan Tsarevich by his breath. And he wished to help him and revive him, but he did not know how. Then at that time he saw a crow and 2 nestlings flying round the body, who wished to land there and to eat the flesh of Ivan Tsarevich. The grey wolf sprang from behind the bush, laid hold of one of the nestlings, and was going to tear it in 2. Then the crow flung himself on earth and sat not far from the grey wolf on the fields. "Do not touch my child! It has not done you any harm." "Listen, Baron Baranovich, I will not touch your son if you will do me a service, to fly across thrice 9 lands into the thrice 10th kingdom, and bring me the waters of life and death." Then the crow said, "Grey Wolf, I will do this service, only do not touch my son." And the crow spoke those words and flew away. On the third day, the crow flew back and brought with him 2 vials. In one, the water of life, and the other, the water of death. And he gave these to the grey wolf. And the grey wolf took the vials, cut the nestling into 2, sprinkled him with the dead water, and the nestling grew together. Then he sprinkled him with the water of life, and the nestling shook himself and flew away. Then the grey wolf sprinkled Ivan Tsarevich with the water of death, and his body clove together. And he sprinkled him then with the water of life, and Ivan Tsarevich stood up alive and said, "Oh, what a long sleep I've had." And the grey wolf said to him, "Yes, Ivan Tsarevich, you might have slept forever if I had not been here. For your brothers have plundered you, and then have taken Princess Elena the Fair and the golden-maned horse and the bird of light with them. Now listen, and return to your kingdom as fast as you can. Your brother Vasily is today going to marry your bride, Princess Elena the Fair. You must hasten there as fast as possible. Sit on me, on the grey wolf, and I will take you there." Ivan Tsarevich sat on the grey wolf, and the wolf ran with him into the kingdom of Tsar Vaslav Adranovich. And, whether it be long, or whether it be far, or whether it be near, they reached the town. Ivan Tsarevich slipped off the grey wolf and went into the town and arrived at the palace, and waited until his brother had returned with the princess from the crowning, and they were sitting down at table. When Elena the Fair saw Ivan Tsarevich, she jumped up at once from her chair and began to kiss his sweet lips and to cry out, "Oh, my beloved bridegroom, Ivan Tsarevich, this is he and not that other who sits at table." Then Tsar Vaslav Adranovich stood up from his place and began to question the Princess Elena the Fair what this might mean. Then the fair princess told him all the real truth, how it had been. Tsar Vaslav Adranovich was then very wroth with Dmitri and Vasily, and sent them into the darkness of the dungeon. Ivan Tsarevich married Princess Elena the Fair, and live with her friendly-wise and lovingly, so that one might never be seen anywhere without the other. The end. And now our next selection is from the Arabian Nights, sometimes referred to as 1001 Arabian Nights. And this is a portion of the 7 voyages of Sinbad the Sailor. And you may know that the Arabian Nights are narrated by Scheherazade. And in this story, she's telling the story of Sinbad, who within this story is telling his tales. So it's kind of a story inside of a story. That's a lot of fun. I abode a while, as I told you yesterday, in the enjoyment of all the comforts and pleasures of life, until one day the longing seized me to travel again and see foreign countries and traffic and make profit by trade. So I took a great sum of money and buying goods and gear fit for travel, packed them into bales. Then I went down to the river bank, where I found a handsome new ship about to sail, well manned and provided and equipped with the sails of fine cloth. I took passage in her with a number of other merchants, and we weighed anchor the same day. Fair weather attended us, and we sailed from place to place, buying and selling and bartering, till chance brought us to a lovely island, abounding in trees laden with ripe fruits and fragrant flowers, and limpid streams, and musical with the song of birds. But there was no dweller there, no, not a blower of the fire. The captain made fast with us to this island, and the merchants and sailors landed and walked about, enjoying the shade of the trees and the song of the birds that chanted the praises of the one, the victorious, and marveling at the works of the omnipotent king. I landed with the rest, and sitting down by a spring of sweet water that welled up among the trees, took out some victual I had with me, and ate of that which God the Most High had allotted me. I sat thus, enjoying the pleasant freshness of the breeze and the fragrance of the flowers, till presently I grew drowsy for the very presence, and lying down, soon fell asleep. When I awoke, I found myself alone, for the ship had sailed with all who were therein, and left me behind, nor had one of the merchants or sailors bethought himself of me. I searched the island right and left, but found neither man nor genie, whereat I was beyond measure troubled, and my gall was like to burst for excess of chagrin and anguish and concern, for that I was left quite alone, without aught of meat or drink or worldly gear, weary and heartbroken. So I gave myself up for lost and said, not always does the pitcher come off unbroken. I escaped the first time and happened on one who brought me to an inhabited place, but this time there is no hope of falling in with such a deliverer. Then I fell a weeping and a wailing, and gave myself up to despair, blaming myself for having again adventured upon the perils and hardships of travel, whereas I was at my ease in my own house in my native city, taking my leisure with pleasant food and rich raiment, and lacking nothing, neither money nor goods, and this the more after all the toils and dangers I had undergone in my first voyage, wherein I had so narrowly escaped destruction. And I repented me of having left Baghdad, and exclaimed, verily we are God's, and to him we return. For indeed I was even as one mad, and I rose and walked about the island, unable for trouble to abide in any one place. Then I climbed a tall tree and looked in every direction, but saw nothing but sky and sea and trees and birds and islands and sands. However, after a while, I caught sight of some great white thing, afar off in the interior of the island. So I came down from the tree, and making for that which I had seen, found it a huge white dome of vast height and compass. I walked all around it, but found no door thereto, nor could I muster strength or nimbleness to climb it, by reason of its exceeding smoothness and slipperiness. So I marked the spot where I stood, and went round about the dome to measure its compass, where I found 50 good paces. As I stood, casting about how to gain an entrance, the sun was suddenly hidden from me, and the air became dark. Methought a cloud had come over the sun, but it was the season of summer, and the day drew near to sundown. So I marveled at this, and lifting my head, looked steadfastly at the sun, when I saw that what I had taken for a cloud was none other than an enormous bird, whose outspread wings, as it flew through the air, obscured the sun and veiled it from the island. At this sight my wonder redoubled, and I bethought me of a story that I had heard aforetime of pilgrims and travellers, how in certain islands dwells a huge bird, called the Rukh, which feeds its young on elephants, and was assured that the dome aforesaid was none other than one of its eggs. As I looked and wondered at the marvelous works of God the Most High, the bird alighted on the egg and brooded over it with its wings, covering it, and its legs spread out behind it on the ground, and in this posture it fell asleep. Glory be to him who sleepeth not. When I saw this, I arose, and unwinding the linen of my turban, twisted it into a rope, with which I girt my middle and bound myself fast to the Ruk's feet, saying in myself, peradventure this bird must carry me to a land of cities and inhabitants, and that will be better than abiding in this island. I passed the night on wake, fearing to sleep, lest the bird should fly away with me at unawares. And as soon as the dawn broke and day appeared, the Rukh gave me a great cry, and spreading its wings, flew up with me into the air. It ceased not to soar till I thought it had reached the limit of the skies, after which it descended, little by little, till it lighted on the top of a high hill. As soon as I found myself on the earth, I made haste to unbind myself, quaking for the fear of the bird, though it took no heed of me, nor was ware of me, and loosening the linen of my turban from its feet, made off. Presently I saw it catch up something from the ground, and rise it into the air, and observing this narrowly, saw it to be a huge great serpent, with which it flew out of sight. I marveled at this, and faring on, found myself on a crest overlooking a great valley, exceeding wide and deep, and bound by vast mountains that soared high into the air. None could see their summits, for the excess of their height, nor could any avail to climb up thereto. When I saw this, I blamed myself for that which I had done, and said, would God I had remained in this island. It was better than this desert place, for there I had at least fruits to eat and water to drink, and here are neither trees, nor fruits, nor streams. But there is no power and no virtue save in God the Most High, the Supreme. Verily, as often as I am quit of one peril, I fall into a worse and a more grievous. However, I took courage, and walking along the valley, found that its soil was of diamond, the stone wherewith they pierce jewels and precious stones and porcelain and onyx, for that it is a hard, dense stone, whereon neither iron nor steel hath effect, neither can we cut off aught therefrom nor break it, save by means of the leadstone. Moreover, the valley swarmed with huge snakes and vipers, as big as palm trees, that would have made but one gulp of an elephant. And they came out by night, hiding during the day, lest the rooks and the eagles should pounce on them and tear them into pieces, as was their wont. Why, I know not. And I repented of that I had done, and said, by Allah, I have made haste to bring destruction upon myself. As I went along, forgetting my hunger and thirst in my concern for my life, the day began to wane, and I looked about for a place where I might pass the night, being in fear of the serpents. Presently I caught sight of a cave near at hand with a narrow doorway. So I entered and rolled a great stone that I had found in the mouth of a cave and stopped it up, saying in myself, "I am safe here for the night, and as soon as it is day, I will go forth and see what destiny will do." Then I looked within the cave and saw at the further end a great serpent brooding on her eggs, at which my hair stood on end. But I raised my eyes to heaven, and committing my case to fate and destiny, abode all that night without sleep till daybreak, when I rolled back the stone from the mouth of the cave and went forth, staggering like a drunken man for stress of watching and fear and hunger. As I walked along the valley, there fell down before me a great piece of meat, but I saw none, at which I marveled greatly, and presently bethought me of a story I had heard aforetime of merchants and pilgrims and travellers, how the mountains, where are the diamonds, are fenced about with great perils and terrors, nor can any win thither. But the merchants who traffic in diamonds have a device by which they get them. That is to say, they take a sheep and kill and skin it, and cut it into quarters, and cast them down from the mountain tops into the valley, where, the meat being sticky with the fresh blood, some of the jewels cling to it. There they leave it till midday, when the eagles and vultures swoop down upon it and carry it up the mountain tops, whereupon the merchants came and shout at them and scare them from the meat. Then they come and taking the diamonds, go their way with them, and leave the meat to the birds and beasts. Nor can any come at the diamonds, but on this wise. So, when I saw the carcass full, and bethought me of the story aforesaid, I filled my pockets and girdle and turban and the folds of my clothes with great plenty of the best of the diamonds. And as I was thus engaged, down fell another great quarter of meat before me. Then I unrolled the linen of my turban, and setting the meat on my breast, bound myself thereto, and lay down on my back, so that I was hidden by the meat, which was thus raised above the ground. Hardly had I done this, when an eagle swooped down upon the meat, and driving its talons into it, flew up with it, and me clinging thereto, and alighted on top of one of the mountains, where it fell to rending the carcass. But there arose a great noise of shouting and clattering of wood, at which the bird took fright and flew away. Then I loosed myself from the meat, with clothes daubed with blood therefrom, and stood up, whereupon came the merchant, who had cried out at the eagle, and seeing me standing there, bespoke me not, but was affrighted at me, and shook with fear. However, he went up to the carcass, and turning it over, found no diamonds sticking to it, whereas he gave a great cry and exclaimed, "Alas, my disappointment! There is no power and no virtue but in God, with whom we seek refuge from Satan the accursed." And he bemoaned himself and beat hand upon hand, saying, "Alas, the pity of it! How cometh this?" Then I went up to him and said to me, "Who art thou, and how camest thou hither?" "Fear not," answered I am a man and a good one and a merchant. My story is a rare one, and the manner of my coming hither is marvelous. So be of good cheer, thou shalt have of me what will gladden thy heart, for I have with me great plenty of diamonds, each better than aught thou couldst have otherwise, and I will give thee thereof what shall suffice thee, so fear nothing." So saying, I gave him abundance of diamonds, and he rejoined therein, and thanked and blessed me. Then we talked together till the other merchants, each of whom had thrown down his piece of meat, hearing me in discourse with their fellow, came up and saluted me. I told them my story, and how I came thither, and they gave me joy of my safety, saying, "By Allah, a new life hath been decreed to thee, for for none ever won to yonder valley, and came off thence alive before thee. But praised be God for thy safety. I passed the night in their company, in a safe and pleasant place, beyond measure rejoiced at my deliverance from the valley of serpents, and my arrival in an inhabited land. And on the morrow we set out, and journeyed along the crest of mountains, seeing many serpents in the valley, till we came to a wide and fair island, wherein was a grove of great camphor trees, under each of which 100 men might shelter. When the folk have a mind to get camphor, they pierce the upper part of the stem with a long gimlet, whereupon the liquid camphor, which is the sap of the tree, runs out, as if it were milk, and they catch it up in vessels, where it hardens like gum. But after this, the tree withers and becomes dry firewood. Moreover, there is in this island a kind of wild beast, called a rhinoceros, that feeds upon grass and leaves of trees, as do oxen and buffaloes with us. But it is a huge beast, bigger of body than the camel, and has a great and thick horn, half a score cubits long, a middle ward its head, where cleft in twain, is the likeness of a man. Travelers say that this beast will carry off a great elephant on its horn, and graze about the island and the sea coast therewith, and take no heed of it, till the elephant dies, and its fat melting in the sun, runs down into the rhinoceros's eyes and blinds him, so that he lies down on the shore. Then comes the Rook, and carries off both elephant and rhinoceros, to feed its young withal. Moreover, I saw in this island many kinds of oxen and buffaloes, whose like are not found in our country. Here I sold some of my diamonds for gold and silver money, and bartered others for the produce of the country. And loading up upon beasts of burden, fared on with the merchants from valley to valley and town to town, buying and selling and viewing foreign countries and the works and creatures of God, till we came to Bassorah, where we abode a few days, after which I continued my journey to Baghdad, and arrived at home with great store of diamonds and money and goods. I foregathered with my friends and relations, and gave alms in largesse, and made presents to all my friends and companions. Then I betook myself to eating and drinking and making merry with my fellows, and forgot all my sufferings. And all who heard of my return came and questioned me of my adventures and of foreign countries, and I related to them all that had befallen me, whereat they wondered exceedingly, and gave me joy of my safe return. This, then, is the end of the story of my second voyage, and tomorrow, God willing, I will tell you what befell me in my third voyage. The company marveled at his story and ate the evening meal with him, after which he ordered 100 dinars be given to the porter, who thanked him and blessed him and went his way, wondering at what he had heard. Next morning, as soon as it was day, he rose, and praying the morning prayer, repaired to the house of Sinbad the sailor, even as he had bidden him, and gave him good morrow. The merchant welcomed him, and made him sit with him, till the rest of the company arrived. And when they had well eaten and drunken, and were merry, and in good case, their host began as follows, saying, "Hearken, O my brothers, to the story of my third voyage, which is more wonderful than those you have already heard." That is the end of the second voyage of Sinbad the Sailor, but it is not the end of the story. If you want to read more, just check out a copy of 1001 Arabian Nights. You can also read them online. And thank you for joining me. I hope to see you next Friday for more folk and fairy tales.